First things first, Armin, how are you?
I'm very well, couldn't be better. It's a very glorious day, celebrating the 800th episode of my radio show. So it's something that I started almost 16 years ago, and now opening my new radio studio today here in Amsterdam in the Armada head office.
If we go back those 16 years, do you remember, because your career was going well at that point, why you wanted a radio show?
I really remember vividly why I wanted a radio show, because when I was falling in love with dance music, I was too young to go to clubs, because I was 16, 17 years old. So I tried to get into the Roxy and the IT, and they didn't allow me to get in. So I had to get my experience from listening to Dutch radio shows. Shows like For Those Who Like to Groove and Rave Radio, Capule Deluxe. It was the early dance music that was on the radio. So I drove my bicycle to school and I recorded these radio shows. And I always said to myself, if I ever get a chance of doing my own radio show, then I will. So in 2001 I got the opportunity by Robin Albers, JD, who was the program director of IDT Radio at the time. And he asked me to do the Thursday night, a program called Into Trance, which I later renamed as A State of Trance. And that was episode 1, and I haven't stopped since. So basically everything I've done was based around the radio show. So I've always used my radio show as the center of everything that I do, whether it's my new productions or telling the world about my new son that was born or about DJ gigs, or I use the radio show as my outlet for my fans to meet them and to discuss new music, to play the new tracks for them and everything.
Is there maybe one or two artists that you remember from hearing on the radio back in the day?
Back in the day, I was a massive fan of Ben Liebrand, the Dutch master mixer, who was one of the very first DJs, actually. And I'm still good friends with him. He's still the Jedi Master for me. Also, I remember Robin Albers, of course, JD, with his mixes for the TROS, T-R-O-S, the Dutch radio station. And Luc Jansen, Capule Deluxe, VPRO radio, was way before the 3412 movement in Holland, and it was the first time of dance music, and it was very exciting. A lot of people ask always why the Dutch DJs why so many Dutch DJs are popular. I think it's because the dance music culture was already really alive in the early 90s. So we all grew up listening to that.
And if we look to where we are now, then I think dance music has kind of exploded over the last couple of years. So how have you seen this development? Because when you started, like you say, it wasn't as big as it is now.
Well, dance music was primarily a club thing in the early days. You were very happy if you flew to America and you sold out a club for 800 people, because that was like until 2008 you did really well. And then the big festivals came. You already had a few festivals that were there, like Electric Daisy Carnival and Ultra Music, but the festivals became more and more. And now the festivals almost took over. There's good and bad sides to the story, but. I think it's nice because not only the commercial side of dance music grew, but also the underground sounds. Techno became huge with its own festival and its own following. Hardstyle became massive. And even sounds like drum and bass or deep house, tropical house, all those genres came. So there's dance music for everybody. So I think it's good that dance music grew, because all these new styles and new talents came from the early house sound.
You mentioned there are also some bad things about it. Can you name me one?
Well, some people are nostalgic about the early days of house music when it was still very fresh and new. And of course, there's a commercialization that happened. Some people really don't like it. Big sponsors jumping on top of it, massive events. But I also want to stress that the fact that these massive events happen also make it possible for the underground to flourish. And for little tents on festival sites hidden in the corner, where there's new guys coming up with new sounds and experimenting with new things. So I think in general it was a good thing that dance music grew, and it really took over the world thanks to the internet.
Sure.
And I was just very lucky to be one of the first with a weekly radio show, one of the DJs that actually had a weekly radio show. Of course there were other DJs back in the time, like Judge Jules and Pete Tong. But I really made a 2-hour radio show about trance music only. And I haven't stopped in 16 years. And this is for me a new chapter, opening my own radio studio with the possibility of having guest DJs, having fans in the studio, making live visual radio, because if you can see, there's cameras everywhere.
Sure.
So the idea is to do a live radio show every week where people can not only hear me talking, but also see me mixing and see me having guests in the studio.
And you mentioned this is kind of for the fans also to have that experience with you. And I wrote a couple of lines down from kind of the intro of the 800th episode, which is celebrating music, celebrating life. And there was also men and women free without worry. So is that kind of what you want people to take away from what you do on the radio and your music in general?
Well, music is more than just trembling air. Music is emotions. You know, music is feeling. And I hope that the state of trance for people is just traveling to this different world where everything is okay, where people are happy and dancing, and then you can forget your everyday worries. When you listen to this music, you can just go completely crazy and just dream about this little world where everything is safe and where we all are celebrating the music, celebrating life in a good way. So that's why I wrote the rap, which is the theme for this year's episode 800. I live for that energy.
And well, I assume you're a very busy man at this moment. So, do you still have the chance to listen to radio outside of what you are doing?
I will tell you a little secret. I regularly listen to my colleagues. Okay. I listen to all kinds of radio shows, whether it's Hardwell show or W&W show or even Pete Tong. I like to listen to it. I try to listen to every DJ show because I think you can always learn something, even if it's a young guy. 16, 17 years old, then there's so much to learn. You can learn from listening to other DJs. So, yeah, I try to listen to as many. And now with the internet, it's so easy. You go online and you can listen to an entire radio show, or you download a podcast when I go running. And I find it really inspiring. It's a great time if you're a music lover. There's so much music out there.
And like you say, there are emerging styles, future house, name them. So what is one thing you've kind of picked up on in the last year maybe through these radio shows?
Well, in A State of Trance we really saw the rise of psytrance. Okay. Psytrance was already, of course it was already there for years, but now it's really grew in popularity. Okay. That's why also I decided to do a psytrance area this year on the State of Trance Festival in the Jaarbeurs in Utrecht on the 18th of February. There will be 7 psytrance acts exclusively for A State of Trance. Actually, I just produced a track together with the psytrance act Vini Vici, a track called Great Spirit. And that did really well online, streaming crazy, and it was really something special for me to do. So yeah, I'm super happy.
And well, psytrance, can you describe it for people who aren't familiar with it?
Psytrance is a very particular scene. It's trance music, but it's not so much sounds. Okay. It's the sounds are shorter, more techy. And the psytrance sound is very, very particular. I can honestly say I'm not a psytrance DJ because there's specific rules that you have to take into account when you listen to psytrance. Okay. But it's music that is very powerful on a dance floor because the sounds are short. So if you have a good PA system, it just goes to your eardrum. It's very groovy. It's very energetic. Very emotional, very meaningful, and uplifting trance is great also, but it's just more about the melodies, the pads, the strings, the riffs that are coming. It's more about the melody and the emotion.
So you have this genre with like say emotion and everything. So when you work on your radio program, do you think about how to create a set list, so to say, or to get certain emotions in, or?
Yeah, of course. I mean, when I do a State of Trance radio show here in the studio, I have Ruben, my sidekick, and together we select the tracks. We go through all the promos of that week. Basically, the formula of A State of Trance is very simple. It's a 2-hour radio show that presents you the latest in trance and progressive in a 2-hour mix. So I mix all the new tracks, and of course some of the tracks that are not new but are really popular. I interact with the fans. I try to ask them what they think about the track. Every week I have a voting system so people can vote for their favorite track. Once a year I have the State of Trance Mega Mix, the year mix, which is more than 100 tracks in less than 2 hours. We have the Top 25 episode. We have the State of Trance Top 1000 every week, every year, so the top 1000 of the most popular trance tracks of the year. Often I will have exclusive premieres from other artists that like to play their tracks on the show for the very first time. So we will have somebody calling in or somebody actually playing the track here. This will be the position where the guest DJ will be. So yeah, it's trying to make an interesting radio show that I would want to listen to if I was a trance fan. And I am, of course.
And you mentioned the guests, so do you already have certain plans in motion?
But tonight for the guests for the special episode, of course, I'm flying in special guests like Ian Standerwick and Ben Gold and Jorn van Dijnhoven. So there's quite a few special people coming. But every week we have to make a radio show, and every week there's always like an album coming out, or you know, it depends on the artist and what they bring. I mean, last week we had, 2 weeks ago we had an album special with Cosmic Gate.
Okay.
So I might invite them to the studio, do a little guest mix, talk about the music, talk about why they work with certain artists, talking about the philosophy behind the music. And it's interesting, and then let them interact with the fans, which is also really cool. So yeah, and every week you can not only hear it, but also see it on Facebook and on YouTube.
And are there, like you say, these discussions, are there things you take away from these discussions and then about your own approach to making music and presenting?
Yeah, of course.
Music?
I mean, one of the biggest, a lot of people ask me where I get my inspiration from for new music, and it's usually the radio show, because I hear so many crazy ideas from other producers. And sometimes I think like, wow, that's a really great melody. I want to try and create a track that has some sort of a melody or build up like that, but different, of course, from my own. So the inspiration usually comes from here in the studio, being here. And
well, the 800th episode, you've celebrated along the way each kind of anniversary, and well, if we look at your accolades, you've been DJ, number one DJ a bunch of times. So are there still things you have in mind for the future? Are there things you dream about, so to say?
Yeah, I have a lot of dreams left still. It's always important to keep dreaming. One of the dreams was to have my own radio studio. Well, that's happening today. So that's another dream accomplished, you could say. Another dream is playing in the Amsterdam Arena, which will happen on the 12th and 13th of May here in Amsterdam. So it's 40,000 people going crazy to my sounds, which is a very special moment for me, for sure. Yeah, I still have a lot of dreams and hopes. I dream of working on the Gaia project, which is another project that I'm doing. A new artist album maybe soon for Armin van Buuren. Maybe, you know, maybe reviving my Rising Star act. I don't know yet. But yeah, there's a lot of music that I still want to make.
Okay. You mentioned a new Armin album. So I assume you've been thinking about it. So where are you leaning? Do you know where you want to go with it a little bit?
At the moment, I haven't made a decision about a new artist album yet. I just released Embrace, which did really well. I'm still touring with that album. Sure. I just released a new single, I Need You, with Olaf Black. It's just an in-between single. I don't know if that's going to be on an album or it's too early to tell. I mean, I haven't really had time to work on a new album because I've been working on this radio studio, on the State of Trance show, on the collaboration with Vini Vici. So I haven't really had time to think about it, but I hopefully in the near future I can start thinking about it.
And finally, you mentioned the Amsterdam Arena shows.
Yeah.
Sold out very quickly.
Yeah.
What does that do to you after all these years that it's still...
Well, for me it's very special because Armin Only has always been my baby. Financially it was always not so smart to do the show because, you know, there's so many ups and downs about it. Flying 30 people to a certain city somewhere and all they need hotel rooms and all they need a fee. So it's very expensive, but it's a gift to my fans. I always say it's Christmas dinner with Armin van Buuren because I play a long set, I play a different variety of sounds. I try to make a smooth transition in the night. I play a special vinyl set from Vinyl Only. So it's really a different thing. And in the Amsterdam Arena, it's sort of celebrating my anniversary, 20 years as a producer. I didn't really want to do a world tour, but I want to do a one-off show where you get the best of all these shows that I've done throughout the years, traveling all over the world. Only one time in Amsterdam on the 12th and 13th of May.
Did it bring back memories going all the way back?
Yeah, of course. Some really good memories. I mean, I've produced 6 artist albums in the last 15 years. And so there's so many artists that I work with. So it would be really great to be with everybody on one stage again.
Armin, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.